Trump's tariff diktat. India stands up to bullying. Government says national interest first.
हम अपने राष्ट्रीय हितों को सुरक्षित करने और आगे बढ़ाने के लिए सभी आवश्यक कदम उठाएंगे।
Fourth largest economy dead, Mr. Trump. Top focus on 5 Live.
Well, there's a big claim, and it's a bizarre and outrageous claim that the Indian economy is dead, is what Donald Trump, the US president, has declared. The leader of the opposition in Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, has also echoed the same sentiments. But that is far from the truth. We'll be getting you up to speed with all those details on the war that has broken out over the announcement of 25% plus tariffs. Up ahead on the show, I'm Sneha Mordani. Let's begin this edition of 5 Live. Well, this is the first reaction from the government of India, with the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal responding in Rajya Sabha today in Parliament. Says the steady rise in exports in last 11 years. The government is confident of fast-paced growth. Goyal has said India to become the third largest economy in response to Donald Trump saying that India's economy is dead. Goyal has said India contributes 16% to global growth. India's talent is driving innovation, is what Piyush Goyal has said in Parliament today. Listen in.
The implications of the recent development are being examined by the government. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry is engaged with all stakeholders, including exporters and industry, for taking feedback of their assessment of the situation. The government attaches the utmost importance to protecting and promoting the welfare of our farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, exporters, MSMEs, and all sections of industry. We will take all necessary steps to secure and advance our national interests.
I'm going to go straight across to my colleague joining in from Business Today Television. Karishma is with us. Karishma, this is a bizarre statement that was made by Donald Trump, and India has in fact put out the facts here about how India's economy is far from being dead. It's one of the most robust and thriving economies from among, in fact, so many countries across the world essentially, and that is something that has been spelled out by the Commerce Minister today in Parliament.
Well, yes, absolutely. I think his comments do come in with a set of vulnerabilities, and the fact he called both the India and Russia as dead economies is something that's not factually true, and that is where Piyush Goyal's comments in the Parliament have come in, where he's defended the fact that India is a country which has shown stronger resilience even during bigger challenges like that of COVID, and it's moved its position from fragile 5 to that of now top 5 economies in the world. Its macroeconomic indicators like GDP growth, inflation, and its fiscal glide path do talk about how India has been able to fiscally manage its position in the last 10 years, but more so, like, I think Donald Trump's comments do come out of a sense of frustration and our relationship with and our dependence on certain imports when it comes to Russia and Iran, and I think that is where his vulnerabilities had given in order to comment this for India.
Be with us, Karishma. A word also from Aishwarya Palwal tracking all of those details. Talk to us, Aishwarya, about what next and how they are going to be countering this statement, and also the imposition and this bullying that has come India's way as far as 25% plus tariffs are concerned. What next? What is going to be the Indian government's strategy? Tell us more.
Well, Sneha, one thing is very, very clear. It cannot be tit for tat, and it cannot be a knee-jerk reaction. That is something that the government very clearly understands, and that's why we are now seeing, very measured approach being taken by the government. And this is very, very evident with regards to the statements which are being made by the Commerce Minister. He's saying that we are now evaluating what needs to be done. All the stakeholders all those people who are exporting, who are importing, the government is now having a long conversation with them, because this is not something which can, it's not tit for tat, and it cannot be knee-jerk reaction, because the implications will be huge on the Indian economy.
Absolutely.
The government is now looking at making sure that India becomes the third largest economy in the world. So that's the focus of the government at the moment. Being a developed nation by 2047 is also something that the government is looking at. So they cannot take any chances. That's something which they are very keenly looking at, and that's the reason why we are seeing a measured response coming in. We will see more statements coming in from the government in the course of the next 15 days.
But you put it rightly there, Aishwarya. I agree with you. It's a rather measured response from the government this time around, but they've been fairly calculated about this, and there are no knee-jerk reactions when it comes to India's response. More news coming in. Government isn't too worried about the US tariff situation. India is not going to retaliate. Silence is the answer. Whatever we do, we will do it on the negotiation table. When we did nuclear testing, so many sanctions were put on us. That time we were a small economy. Today we are a self-sufficient economic power. Why should we worry now? Atmanirbhar really is the message from the government. Karishma continues to be with us on that. India is obviously waiting for the right time. I guess, Karishma, this has obviously got to do with negotiations which are currently even underway as we speak, even as the knee-jerk sort of a reaction comes in from Donald Trump, ranting about our economy, talking about Russia at the same length. This is something that India is going to do. Talk where it matters, and talk in a way which is calculative and also beneficial to us.
India is taking a wait and watch approach.
Yes.
We are in a time period of silence, because we do not want to take an impulsive decision of responding to the US, because I'm sure it has come after a lot of discussions and negotiations. And as much as I know, government was preparing to re-strategize their ways out for a week now, because they were expecting this to be on cards. Sources in the government have been telling us that they will continue to negotiate with the US. In fact, 5 rounds of negotiations were recently also held by India's chief negotiator. Minister Piyush Goyal had also visited Washington recently, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Trump have also had a meeting early this year. The reason why we thought we did have a first mover advantage, and that our friendship could have resulted in something better. But never mind, I think India is taking a sweet and subtle approach. We are looking forward to close our bilateral trade agreement. We are focusing on long-term relationship rather than being impacted by these short-term hurdles.
I'm going to come back to you in a moment from now. Karishma getting in those details. Also, Aishwarya continues to be with us. And our colleague from Business Today magazine, Surbhi, is also with us. Coming back to you all in a moment. Be with us, telling our viewers about what's happened. It's India's friend delivering a feisty punch with new tariffs. President Donald Trump has imposed 25% tariffs on India ahead of the 1st of August deadline. Union Minister Piyush Goyal will be speaking. In fact, he's spoken in Lok Sabha already and also in Rajya Sabha. The government has spoken about this matter, addressing the concerns, but has been rather cautious and guarded in their response. In the very latest, Trump has criticized the economies of India and Russia, clubbing them together, saying both nations have dead economies, quote unquote. He added that he doesn't care about their relationship and remarked they can put down their dead economies together. This statement came shortly after he announced an additional penalty on India for purchasing weapons and oil from Russia. Amid all of this, the US has imposed sanctions on 7 Indian companies for trading with Iran. India so far has struck a measured tone, saying the government is studying the implications and remains committed to achieving a fair and mutually beneficial trade agreement.
Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine, but they don't do very much business in terms of business with us. They sell a lot to us, but we don't buy from them. You know why? Because the tariff is so high. They have one of the highest tariffs in the world. Now they're willing to cut it very substantially, but we'll see what happens. We're talking to India now. We'll see what happens. It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff.
On the tariffs on India, are you still open to negotiate with India on the tariff front?
Well, we're talking to them now. We'll see what happens. Again, India was the highest, or just about the highest tariff nation in the world, and one of the highest, 100 points, 150 points or percentages. So India was one of the highest in the world. They had won 175%, and higher than that. You know, who's another higher one is Canada. They've been charging our farmers 200%, 300%, 400% for years, and nobody did anything about it. But India is one of the highest, so we're going to see. We're negotiating with India right now.
I do believe the American stand has not been totally reasonable. And I believe our stand, we can possibly show some flexibility, but there is a limit to how much flexibility we can show. Everything depends on the ongoing negotiations. I wish our negotiators good luck and good courage, because we can't afford to buckle under. We have to keep our national interests as number one in our minds.
Well, India has been very guarded and very cautious and measured in its response. But at the end of the day, there would be an impact on the Indian economy as well. And how will that really be? Let's take a look, in fact, and give our viewers an idea about how this is going to be impacting the Indian economy, if at all. Trump's bullying, in fact, translates into real action. And we indeed have to deal with 25% plus tariffs, which also includes penalties, as has been spelled out clearly by Donald Trump. Let's take a look at the kind of impact on India. $14 billion worth of electronics exports at the risk, essentially. Major chunk of India's electronics exports are vulnerable to US tariffs, and that's something that India needs to watch out for. What about gem and jewelry exports? $9 billion worth, and this could India, in fact, take a hit in the country. High-value luxury exports are among the worst impacted sectors when it comes to the imposition of this tariff plus the penalty. Tariff hike is going to, if at all it materializes, will be raising entry barriers. Indian exporters face higher costs and reduced competitiveness. The other key sectors hit, like I said, electronics, jewelry, pharmaceutical, chemicals, and auto components. This, of course, is through various news reports, and GTRI is the information with us. Something, Survi, that we cannot ignore at this point in time. India has said that we are Atmanirbhar, and the response has been measured, indicating that there is no reason to panic and worry at this point in time because the negotiations are underway. But if 25% plus tariffs were to come into effect, there would be huge problems when it comes to the cost, or the various goods and the various sectors that we listed out would be impacted, Survi.
Hi. So yes, there will be some impact on how the economy goes. But while we've been talking to the government and analysts, they're saying that, the GDP growth is unlikely to see a big hit, because we must remember that a lot of India's growth is through domestic consumption, and exports continue to be just a small part and engine of growth. So if you look at the numbers per se, while the US is India's largest exporting partner, and we have bilateral trade of about $190 billion, total exports to the US amount to just about 2% of India's GDP, which is still a very small amount. So when we talk to the government or when we talk to analysts, they're saying it's still too early to worry. We are all looking at the possibility of a deal still taking place. And even if there's some impact on exports or on GDP growth, it would be in the range of 10 to 30 basis points compared to, the growth projections are anywhere in the range of 6.2 to 6.5% for this fiscal, and we don't see a major strike happening on it due to the higher tariffs.
Right, be with us, Survi. I'm going to come back to you in a moment from now to tell our viewers a little about our exports and imports and the way we deal with the United States on a daily basis pretty much. And these are figures from 2024. Let's tell our viewers a little about what India exports to US really are. Medicines, telecom, gems and jewelry, petro products, gold and jewelry, and also textiles, iron and steel as well. Let's also tell you a little about imports from the US, and this is again, like I said, data from 2024. Crude oil, petrochemical products, coal, coke, diamonds, electronic goods essentially, aircraft spares, and of course, like I said, gold at the very outset. And there would be fair amount of impact as far as the trade dealings are concerned. Karishma also continues to be with us. Karishma also explained to us the other component that Donald Trump had mentioned in his rather emotive sort of a post that he had put out, talking about penalties. What are these penalties that he's really referring to at this point in time?
We really need to wait for the fine print in order to analyze what these penalties are. But on the surface, what we understand is these penalties are going to be on India having importing energy, that is oil from Russia, and also the military equipment. Now, let's not forget that in the past few years, our dependence on Russia has increased, and this is also because of the discounted crude oil price that we get from Russia. And while this issue was also under discussions about a year or two back when the prices were shooting high, and we were trying to discover alternate sources or alternate ways of sourcing oil back to India, we stayed back with a discounted price from Russia. And currently, if we see at the percentage, we are importing close to about 45% of crude oil from Russia. Trump's comments come in a way of the current geopolitics conflict existing between Russia and Ukraine. And I think via this strategy, he's asking India to pick a clear side. And there is a thin line between asking us to do this and pressurizing us to do this. And clearly he's doing the latter with us, where he's trying to hurt our fiscal and economic situation by these indirect methods of our relationship with Russia and Iran.
Be with us, Karishma, getting in those details and once again taking our viewers through what our dealings with the US are. And this has got both to do with what we are buying from them and what we are selling to them. These are details of Indian exports in $1 billion. Take a look at these figures from 2024. Medicines at 8.1 billion, telecom at 6.5 billion, gems and jewelry at 5.3 billion, petrochemical products at 4.1 billion, gold and jewelry at 3.2, textiles at 2.8, iron and steel at $2.7 billion. A look now at India's imports from the US. Again, figures are from 2024. Crude oil at 4.5 billion, petrochemicals at 3.6 billion, coal, coke at 3.4 billion, diamonds at 2.6 billion, electronic goods at 1.4 billion, aircraft spares at 1.3, and gold at $1.3 billion. A 25% tariff and an added penalty. President Trump's move has rattled Indian exporters. But is this just a trade war or just a Trump-style tactic? Here's a look at the sectors that are all under pressure. But with talks still underway, the full story really is far from over. Here's more.
Is this just a tariff or a Trump tactic? In a dramatic move, US President Donald Trump on Wednesday announced a 25% tariff on Indian exports starting 1st August. He cited high Indian duties, non-monetary trade barriers and New Delhi's defense and energy ties with Russia. He also announced an unspecified penalty on top, a move widely seen as a pressure tactic ahead of the expected India-US trade agreement. India's export community calls the move disappointing but not irreversible. They remain hopeful that the upcoming bilateral trade agreement will ease tensions and bring down duties.
25% tariff on India is a little disappointing on us. We are constructively engaged with the US on the BTA. We are also not certain what will be the added penalty which he is talking about.
One of the hardest hit sectors is expected to be India's labour-intensive gems and jewellery industry. A prior 10% tariff had already led to nearly 50,000 job losses. And now, fear looms large that the toll could double under the new 25% rate.
अगर ये 1 अगस्त के बाद सेम परिस्थिति आती है तो शायद 1 लाख से ज़्यादा लोगों को इफेक्ट करेगा और शायद ये इफेक्ट ज्वेलरी इंडस्ट्री के लिए बहुत ही दुखद होगा.
Beyond jewellery, a host of sectors stand at a risk, from pharmaceuticals and textiles to electronics and oil refining. But some experts see this as a strategic moment for India's MSMEs to step up and adapt.
Momentarily, there will be impact on our MSMEs, but we see this as an opportunity also. This is the time that India, scales it up. We need to be more competitive.
India's trade leaders are also calling for a serious pivot, urging the country to diversify export markets and reduce reliance on the US tourism, and services may also face ripple effects as demand softens.
India will have to diversify its export markets because right now we are dependent quite a lot on America, and we will have to relook at certain Asian markets and also some of the European markets.
Analysts see the tariff as part of a wider US realignment, a pressure tactic rather than a permanent stand. Negotiations are likely, and India is expected to push for revised terms.
पहले तो ये हम समझ लें कि ये नेगोशिएशन जो है खत्म नहीं हुए हैं, ये कॉमा लगा है, पॉज लगा है। ट्रम्प की स्टाइल है प्रेशर डालने की, इस तरह से वो प्रेशर डालना चाहते हैं।
From factory floors to foreign ministries, India is now recalibrating its global trade game. While the 25% tariff is a setback, it is widely seen as a pressure tactic, not the end of the road. Negotiations between India and America are still very much on, and the final deal may look very different. As they say in Bollywood, picture abhi baki hai mere dost. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
The story really is far from over, isn't it, Surbhi? Also tell us, and this is something that has been spelled out by the government, our national interests first. What were the sticking points? Really, I understand dairy and agriculture were the areas which India refused to budge on, clearly saying that this is a non-negotiable for us, isn't it?
Absolutely. Agriculture and dairy is something which is so close to the heart of this country. We have thousands of farmers, lakhs and millions of farmers who depend on this. And if you see, even in other trade deals, like the most recently done UK FTA, India did not open up this sector. While we have given some access in other areas, agriculture and dairy is something we were not willing to open up for any country, whether it's the US, the UK, or even in negotiations with the EU. But yes, in the negotiations, we will agree to give limited access to US imports such as Washington apples, pecan nuts, blueberries, salmon. These are the kind of things we are willing to open up our markets for. The other sticking point, according to sources in the know, was a further reduction in auto tariffs, which India was not willing for. And then, of course, there is this whole unpredictability while dealing with the US, because almost every night there are fresh announcements by the US on fresh tariffs on various issues. So that's another unpredictable factor, which the government is. Often the government is, officials say that they are at sea on how to take up such issues with the US. So while negotiations are continuing and the efforts are that we strike a trade deal, but issues like I said on agri and dairy were the key sticking points, apart from issues in automobiles, and of course also on the digital economy side, where there have been discussions on how India should tax these companies from the US and other issues.
Be with us. I'm just going to come back to you all in a moment from now as we continue to discuss that big story, and the very latest on this has just come in. That's news coming in. Let's take a look at a new statement that has been put out by Donald Trump. Tariffs are making America great and rich again. They were successfully used against the USA for decades. Coupled with really dumb, pathetic and crooked politicians, we're having a devastating impact on the future, he says, and even after the survival of our country. Now the tide has completely turned. America has successfully countered this onslaught of tariffs used against it. 1 year ago, America was a dead country. Now it is the hottest country anywhere in the world. Congratulations to all my great lawyers who fought so hard to save our country. Good luck in America's big case today. If a country was not able to protect itself by using tariffs against tariffs, we would be dead, with no chance of survival or success. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Apart from the 25% tariff, Donald Trump has announced an additional penalty on India for purchasing weapons and all from Russia. At the same time, the US has imposed sanctions on 7 Indian companies for trading with Iran. President Trump appears miffed even as India remains tough. Here's more.
India is one of the highest tariff nations in the world. They sell a lot to us, but we don't buy from them. You know why? Because the tariff is so high. If they call up and they say, would like to do something a different way, we're going to be open to that. They do it to us and we do it to them.
US President Donald Trump is upset. Very, very upset. Much isn't going his way. At home, even his own central bank is ignoring his pleas and threats to slash interest rates.
We should be the lowest interest rate, and we're not. We're 38, number 38, because of the Fed. It's all because of the Fed. He's done a bad job. Now, he's got a meeting today, but I call him too late.
Today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged. We believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments.
The latest GDP figures show the US economy grew 3% between April and June, a fact Trump is celebrating, but a closer look paints a more nuanced picture. Private sector investment growth and consumer spending have slowed sharply. Inflation rose for the second straight month in June to 2.7%. And though unemployment remains near historic lows, job creation is clearly losing momentum. On the global economic stage, it's been 6 months, and yet the US has failed to finalize trade deals with three biggest partners: Mexico, Canada, and China. Trump's frustration surfaced online Thursday morning when he linked stalled talks to Canada's support for the Palestinian statehood, an unusually sharp diplomatic linkage. Even his mega trade announcement with the European Union is clouded with uncertainty.
I think it's great that we made a deal today instead of playing games.
France called the agreement a dark day for Europe, accusing the European Union of caving in to Trump with a lopsided deal. The pact reportedly slaps a 15% US tariff on EU goods while sparing most US exports from immediate retaliation. Germany's chancellor warned the agreement could inflict serious damage on Europe's largest economy, with manufacturers bracing for the impact of new tariffs. But it's India that may mark Trump's biggest foreign policy failure so far.
President Trump is frustrated with the progress we've made with India, but feels that a 25% tariff will address and remedy the situation in a way that's good for the American people.
For months, Trump has teased a big trade deal with India. He has repeatedly claimed credit for brokering an India-Pakistan ceasefire, something vehemently denied by India, framing it as leverage for a trade pact. That claim now rings hollow. Trump has instead slapped a 25% tariff plus a Russia penalty on Indian goods.
They have one of the highest tariffs in the world. Now they're willing to cut it very substantially, but we'll see what happens. We're talking to India now, we'll see what happens. It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff, but you'll know at the end of this week.
Trump's frustration has spilled into pointed jibes at India. In announcing a trade deal with Pakistan, Trump even claimed the two nations could jointly develop Pakistan's oil reserves, adding with a jibe that Pakistan may be selling oil to India one day. Trump's anger is also stoked by his faltering bid to play peacemaker in Ukraine. Russia has answered his repeated ceasefire statements with more strikes, and Trump's pledge to advance his peace deadline from 50 days to just 10 drew a mocking post from Dmitry Medvedev. The former Russian president used Trump's own sleeping Joe insult, taunting him and warning his ultimatum could push the US closer to war with Russia. That post enraged Trump, and he's now targeting nations tied to Moscow, including BRICS members and those still buying Russian crude. India was once again in the crosshairs Thursday morning. Trump called it a dead economy. This despite India accounting for 17% of global growth in 2024 and being forecast to grow at double the global rate in 2025. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
And President Trump has slapped India with a 25% tariff, calling India's economy dead. Trump's remarks sparked strong reactions. Politics is also intensifying back home here in the country. Listen in.
On Saturday, my administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of two nations with lots of nuclear weapons.
First, he lied about brokering the Operation Sindoor ceasefire. Not once, not twice, but more than 30 times.
I'm averaging about a war a month. The last three were very close together, India and Pakistan.
When Prime Minister Narendra Modi stuck to his guns in Parliament and refused to give in to American bullying, President Trump lashed out with a 25% tariff plus a penalty for India's ties with long-term strategic partner Russia. The meltdown continued online with Trump announcing an oil deal with a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror, Pakistan, clearly to spite India. And then came the ultimate barb. A tantrum-throwing Trump claimed that India's economy was dead and he couldn't care less about it. At a time when the country's national interest and its reputation are both under attack from an erratic Donald Trump, national interest dictates that our political leaders stand as one, keeping India first. But that message clearly hasn't reached Rahul Gandhi.
Everybody knows that the Indian economy is a dead economy. I'm glad that President Trump has stated a fact. आपको ये मालूम नहीं है कि Indian economy dead economy है?
The leader of opposition in parliament has not just publicly agreed with Donald Trump, he's reiterated that claim that the Indian economy is dead. Rahul Gandhi's statement hasn't gone down well, not just with the government, but even his allies in the India bloc. Some of his own party loyalists have also disagreed with him.
इंडिया कभी झुकेगी नहीं, इंडिया का इकोनॉमी कभी डेड नहीं हो सकती है. ये ट्रम्प और कोई भी आया और हिंदुस्तान का और मोदी जी का ट्रम्प का दोस्ती का चक्कर में इंडिया हिंदुस्तान का इतना बेइज्जती हो रहा है.
But the opposition has mocked Modi's much touted friendship with Trump and called it a failure of Modi's diplomacy.
जो सरकार लगातार पिछले 11 वर्षों से दोस्ती के बाद दोस्ती और कितनी दोस्ती बढ़ाई कि आज हमें क्या दिन देखने को पड़ रहे हैं. ये शुरुआत है बुरे दिनों की.
Call him the greatest liar of the century. उस प्रस्ताव को स्वीकार करिए. ये व्यक्ति आपे से बाहर हो रहे हैं और ये हिंदुस्तान की किसी सरकार को डिमीन नहीं कर रहे हैं, हिंदुस्तान को डिमीन कर रहे हैं.
The government has assured that talks are ongoing and the Modi government is working for the nation.
सरकार हालिया घटनाक्रम से होने वाले प्रभावों का परीक्षण कर रही है. वाणिज्य एवं उद्योग मंत्रालय निर्यातकों और उद्योग सहित सभी हितधारकों से संवाद कर इस विषय पर उनके आकलन की जानकारी ले रहा है.
Criticizing the government's policies, the opposition's right and responsibility, but by throwing India's economy under the bus, has Rahul Gandhi crossed a line. With Piyush Mishra and Aishwarya Paliwal, Bureau Report, India Today.
Straight across to Piyush Mishra, getting in those reactions from Parliament today. Piyush clearly has split an opinion when it comes to the opposition. We've seen, members of the India bloc themselves, in fact, the Congress party themselves saying that this isn't a dead economy, and that's a statement that we don't stand with the president, American president on. In fact, this is the Indian economy is growing, and we are with the country on that, isn't it? Piyush.
Not getting audio.
All right, we'll try and connect with Piyush in a moment. From now, apologize for that, but we were trying to get in a word from our reporter who's been tracking that big story in Parliament. Remember, came in a reaction from Rahul Gandhi when he was actually asked about the Maligaon blast and the verdict, but instead he decided to focus on speaking about the Indian economy and President Donald Trump's statement from last evening, wherein he had criticized India and spoken about us being a failed economy. Rahul Gandhi reiterated that essentially. However, members from his own political party, the Congress, have said India's economy is not dead, far from it. And also other members of the India bloc reiterated this same, saying that this is a false statement that has been made by the US president in calling India's economy failed. They've criticized the Modi government for failure in what they say diplomacy, this failure in diplomacy, and that these talks of friendship between the Prime Minister and President Donald Trump are just an eyewash, is what the opposition has been insinuating. However, to say that India's economy has failed is far from the truth, is what the opposition has also said. However, Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the opposition in Lok Sabha, has said it's a truth, and that he's glad, he went on to say, that US President Donald Trump has spoken the truth. This is politics which is brewing over this matter, with very harsh statement being made by US President Donald Trump. Went on to in fact speak about Russia at the same time, spoken about the fact that India is a friend, but we are doing little business given that our tariffs are extremely high. He also went on to say that India's economy along with Russia's are dead. For all he cares, is what he reiterated. Relentless rains have battered most parts of India over the last few days, as per the Indian Met Department. Heavy rains are expected to continue, and September rainfall is likely to be above normal over the country during the second half of the southwest monsoon season. Rains have brought respite, though, to the Delhi NCR region, recording the cleanest air in the month of July in an entire decade. But traditionally, wettest regions are grappling with rainfall deficits. Rainfall distribution so far in 2025 has shown disparities across different states, creating both concerns and optimism depending on the region. Dramatically, this year, the rainfall pattern has been notably uneven, with significant deficits reported in many regions, especially in the northeastern states, traditionally known for heavy monsoon showers.
पुलिस और प्रशासन की तरफ से लगातार हालात पर नज़र रखी जा रही है। एसडीआरएफ की टीम भी वहां पर लगी हुई है और फिलहाल यात्रा आज शाम तक के लिए स्थगित है। हमारा जो मलबा आया था जिस स्थान पर, वहां पर 2 पोकलैंड और 4 जेसीबी के जरिए तेजी से काम किया जा रहा है। जैसे ही रूट साफ होता है और स्थानीय प्रशासन इसके लिए ग्रीन सिग्नल दे देता है कि आगे पूरी तरह से ट्रैक रूट सुरक्षित है, उसी के बाद यात्रियों को वहां जाने की अनुमति दी जाएगी।
प्रदेश में मूसलाधार बारिश ने सिंध नदी का उफान इतना ज्यादा कर दिया है कि कई निचले इलाके सिंध नदी की चपेट में आ चुके हैं। शिवपुरी जिले का भड़ोता चक गांव जो है वो भी अब सिंध नदी से घिर चुका है। बाकायदा कुछ लोग वहां फंसे भी हैं, जिन्हें बचाने के लिए सेना की जो टीम है वो अनंतपुर गांव से रवाना हो चुकी है। लेकिन स्थानीय नागरिक जो यहाँ पे मौजूद हैं वो कह रहे हैं कि रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन बहुत धीरे चल रहा है और इस बात से उन्हें काफ़ी ज़्यादा गुस्सा है, क्योंकि इनके मुताबिक गांव में जो लोग वहाँ पे फंसे हुए हैं उनमें छोटे बच्चे भी हैं जिनकी तबीयत भी खराब हो रही है और उन तक दवाई पहुँचाना भी बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी हो गया है। स्थानीय लोग यहाँ मौजूद हैं हमारे साथ बड़ौता चक गाँव के। जी बताइए, क्या नाम है आपका?
मेरा नाम राजपाल सिंह है।
राजपाल जी, क्या स्थिति है? अभी नदी का बहाव कितना है?
पानी बहुत तेज है। यहाँ हमारे कुछ बच्चे फंसे हुए हैं, उनका बीमार भी हैं, वो निकलने ना दवाई जा पा रही है ना वो निकल पा रहे हैं।
क्या समस्या आ पा रही है, क्यों नहीं जा पा रही है?
अभी रेस्क्यू टीम बहुत ढीली चल रही है। अभी इसको 48 घंटे के समथिंग हो रहे हैं, ठीक है ना, 35-36 घंटे आराम से हो गए, ना तो वहाँ पहुँच रहे हैं, ना उनके खान पान की, उनकी गाय भैंसें भी इधर है बब गई हैं और बच्चे बीमार हैं। उनकी स्थिति बहुत खराब है। 70 लोग हैं कम से कम, 3
क्या बता रहे हैं?
सिंह, लखा सिंह, सुखा सिंह।
क्या बता रहे हैं प्रशासन के लोग, क्या बता रहे हैं, कब तक?
प्रशासन के लोग आश्वासन बहुत दे रहे हैं। बच्चा रो रहा है, माँ दूध नहीं दे रही, अभी तक कोई नहीं पहुँचा जहाँ पे।
और यहाँ पे गांव में रहने वाले जो लोग हैं वो कहीं ना कहीं इस उफनते पानी में फंसे हुए हैं और ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि यहाँ से जितने जल्दी हो सके जो लोग फंसे हुए हैं उन्हें निकाला जाए। रेस्क्यू के लिए जो टीम एनडीआरएफ की और एसडीआरएफ की यहाँ पहुंची हुई है उसकी भी ये लोग लगातार मदद कर रहे हैं, लेकिन अभी भी पानी का बहाव इतना ज़्यादा तेज़ है कि वो टीमें उन लोगों तक नहीं पहुंच पाई है जो वहां फंसे हुए हैं। और ऐसे में इंतजार जो है वो लंबा होता जा रहा है और इन लोगों के सब्र का बांध भी टूटता जा रहा है। गुना शिवपुरी बॉर्डर के फड़ौता गांव से मैं रवीश पाल सिंह।
All right, and telling you a little about what's happening in the Jammu and Kashmir region, where the Amarnath Yatra has been suspended as heavy rain lashes this entire region. We've been telling you about various parts of the country. The pictures on your screen are from Shivpuri in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. There have been rainfalls which are in fact in excess in states like Meghalaya, for example, in the northeastern part of the country, usually receiving more rainfall and considered the rainiest part really of the world, has seen a deficit in monsoons. As far as rains and the weather is concerned, good news for all of us in the Delhi NCR region, given that the air quality index has also improved significantly, so much so that we've never had clean air as this, I beg your pardon, in the last 1 decade or so. Mir Fareed is joining us for more details. He is in Srinagar, and the Amarnath Yatra, of course, has been suspended there because of the rains in Jammu and Kashmir. It's a big concern. Talk to us about the kind of arrangements, alternate arrangements that have been made for the Yatris and how this has really played spoil sport this time around. Mir.
Well, yes. In fact, on 3rd of July, the Yatra started and the numbers were very good for the first 10 days because the weather was fine. It was favorable. Previous years, we've seen because of bad weather and rains, landslides and other issues, Yatra used to get suspended. But this year, the first part was good, but off late, last 1 week has seen intermittent, very heavy rains. And this has also lashed to the Yatra routes, be it Baltal or Pahalgam. And then yesterday, Yatra had to be suspended. Now, today as well, while from the Baltal route, the Yatra was allowed, but from the Pahalgam route, it remains suspended because of bad weather, which the rain, which has led to track getting damaged, and the repair work has been undertaken. Overall, it has been a year of extreme weather variations. If you talk of Kashmir, we saw unprecedented heat for a long stretch in June, and then suddenly the weather took a turn, and since it's been raining. So while the experts say that this is being attributed to global warming, climate change phenomena, which is affecting places across the world, and Kashmir, North India has also seen it. We're seeing heavy rains in between spells of very hot weather and then again rain. So this is what the Met Department has predicted. And for the next at least 3 to 4 days, the weather is going to remain erratic. And this is not only for Jammu and Kashmir, but also for Himachal, Delhi, in fact, also Uttarakhand, hilly areas of Uttarakhand. So this is the weather advisory. And and gusty winds and windstorms may also be accompanied by heavy rain. So that is what the Met Department is saying. And people living in mountainous belts in areas which are hilly have been told to exercise caution, adhere to weather advisories, because there could be flash flooding and also mudslides and landslides.
Leaving it there for the moment, Mir Fareed getting asked those details and telling us about the situation there. Meanwhile, pictures, in fact, we put out just a few moments ago are from different parts of the country which are reeling under heavy rains. And of course, civic mess is the story that always really follows. Moving on, much of the Pacific world, including Siberian Russia and the west coast of Russia, continues to be on tenterhooks after yesterday's monster earthquake measuring 8.8 on the Richter scale. Parts of the North Pacific were rattled by powerful aftershocks on Thursday, a day after one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded struck. Kamchatka cry off the coast of Russia. Dozens of aftershocks have been recorded since Wednesday's quake. 5 were notably strong, registering a magnitude above 6. Most were recorded off Russia's far east. The strongest is 6.9 magnitude earthquake. It struck the Kamchatka Peninsula late last night. Yesterday's earthquake, among the strongest ever, had triggered tsunami alerts all across the Ring of Fire. The entire region, Russia, Hawaii, Japan, and the American western coast states of Oregon, California, Washington, China, Taiwan, the Philippines, Indonesia, Chile, Peru, had all issued alerts of varying degrees. That's the Ring of Fire you have on your screens at this point in time.